The night was a suffocating shroud swallowing the lonely highway. I gripped the steering wheel, white-knuckled, as I ventured into the desolation, the car's engine my sole companion. While night driving alone wasn't new to me, this night was different, laden with an unsettling unease. The car's radio suddenly crackled, emitting eerie, distorted sounds that sent shivers down my spine. My hand instinctively reached for the volume knob, but froze in midair, as if held by an invisible force. The radio returned to normal, playing a soft, melancholic tune, but the unease lingered. The road ahead stretched endlessly, bordered by impenetrable woods. Gnarled tree branches reached out like skeletal fingers, casting eerie, shifting shadows on the asphalt. I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lurked in the forest darkness. Minutes became miles, and I glanced at the rearview mirror, spotting dim headlights in the distance. Relief washed over me, another traveler sharing the night. Maybe their presence would ease my unease. Yet, the car behind me showed no signs of passing or falling back. A sense of foreboding grew, and irrational fear gnawed at my mind. I was being followed. I tried to dismiss the paranoia, convincing myself of mere coincidence, but the unease persisted. To test my theory, I veered onto a narrow side road, my heart pounding. The pursuing car followed without hesitation. Panic gripped me and I accelerated, desperate to escape my relentless shadow. The side road twisted, leading deeper into the woods. The canopy above cast suffocating darkness, moonlight struggling through. My headlights revealed gnarled trees, their twisted branches clawing at the night sky. My phone buzzed and I jumped. Fumbling to answer, my trembling fingers struggled to tap the screen. A friend, sensing my unease, urged me to call the police, but my phone's signal was weak. I hung up, heart pounding, and looked at the rearview mirror. The pursuing car remained, its headlights unwavering. This was no ordinary traveler. Sinister intent lurked. My mind raced, and I spotted a small dirt path ahead. Without hesitation, I took it. The path was rough, but I had no choice. The pursuing car, relentless, followed into the dark woods. I pushed my car to its limits, navigating the treacherous path. Branches scraped my vehicle, the underbrush reached out. Visibility was minimal, relying solely on my headlights. After an eternity, I reached a dead end. My car stopped, and I realized with dread there was no way out. The pursuing car pulled up behind me, its engine growling. Sitting there, trembling, the man approached. His face obscured, he rapped on my window. I lowered it slightly, terror in my voice. "What do you want?" I managed to croak. He leaned closer, malevolent eyes revealed beneath his hood. "Isn't it obvious? I've been following you for a reason. Now, it's time for you to pay the price." He reached for the door handle, and I slammed my foot on the gas pedal. My car lurched forward, crashing through the underbrush. Branches scraped my car, and I heard the pursuing car revving its engine. I pushed my car to its limits, navigating the treacherous path. The darkness seemed endless, but I refused to give up. The pursuing car fell behind, unable to keep up. Finally, I burst out of the woods, heart still pounding. I drove to the nearest police station, reporting the harrowing encounter. The chances of catching the man were slim. The memory of those malevolent eyes haunts me. I avoid driving alone at night, fearing the shadows might come alive with malevolent intent, and I'll be pursued by something far more sinister than I could ever imagine.
In the heart of a small, secluded town nestled between rolling hills and a dense forest, there was a mysterious old road known as Whispering Way. Legends whispered through generations, tales of eerie happenings and inexplicable phenomena that plagued those who dared to drive it at night. Skeptics dismissed the stories as superstition, but locals knew better. One moonless night, curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to embark on a journey down Whispering Way. The road was enveloped in darkness, the thick canopy of trees blocking out any semblance of starlight. My headlights cut through the inky blackness like a knife, revealing an eerily empty road ahead. As I ventured deeper into the forest, an uncanny feeling washed over me. It was as if the very air was charged with an otherworldly energy, and I couldn't help but shiver despite the warmth of my car's interior. The stories of Whispering Way being haunted by restless spirits echoed in my mind. but I brushed them off as mere folklore. The radio, my only source of companionship, crackled suddenly. Static filled the car, followed by an indistinct, ghostly whisper that sent a chill down my spine. My fingers fumbled to change the station, but the whisper grew louder as if it was trying to convey a message from the beyond. My heart raced, and I tried to focus on the road ahead, but the car seemed to have a will of its own. It veered slightly, as if pulled by an unseen force. Panic surged within me as I struggled to regain control, my tires screeching against the asphalt. Just as suddenly as it began, the radio returned to its normal state, the whisper fading into the static. My hands were trembling, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something unnatural had just intervened. I pressed on, determined to reach the end of Whispering Way and prove the superstitions wrong. But the road seemed to stretch endlessly into the heart of the forest, the trees crowding in, their branches forming a tunnel of shadows that loomed overhead. My surroundings became disorienting, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As minutes turned into hours, the darkness outside seemed to grow impenetrable. My headlights illuminated nothing but an endless corridor of trees. I had lost all sense of time and direction, and the forest had become an inescapable labyrinth. Suddenly, my car's engine sputtered and died, plunging me into a stifling silence. I tried to restart it, but the engine remained stubbornly lifeless. Panic welled up inside me, and I reached for my phone to call for help, only to find that there was no signal. Alone in the oppressive darkness, I felt a presence, an invisible weight in the car with me. It was as if the very air had thickened and I struggled to breathe. I could hear faint, ghostly whispers, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. In the dim glow of my dashboard, I saw shadowy figures moving outside the car, their forms indistinct and ethereal. Fear clawed at me, and I locked the doors, hoping it would keep whatever was out there at bay. The figures outside drew closer, their whispers growing louder and more frantic. It was as if they were trying to communicate, to convey some urgent message. I strained to understand, but their words were unintelligible, a cacophony of eerie voices that sent shivers down my spine. Desperation overcame me, and I prayed for the car to start. With trembling hands, I turned the key in the ignition once more, and this time the engine roared to life. Without a second thought, I slammed my foot on the gas pedal and sped down the road, away from the haunting figures and their chilling whispers. As I emerged from the forest, the night seemed to release its grip on me. My heart was still pounding, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had brushed against something otherworldly on Whispering Way. It was a road that held secrets beyond human comprehension, and I knew that I would never venture down that dark path again. From that night on, I became a believer in the stories of Whispering Way. The road was more than just a superstition, it was a gateway to the unknown. A place where the boundaries between our world and the supernatural realm blurred, and where the whispers of the dead could be heard by those who dared to listen.
The night was enveloped in a thick, velvety darkness as I drove along a deserted rural road. The path ahead stretched on endlessly, bordered by dense woods that seemed to absorb the very light of the moon. The solitude of the late-night drive usually brought me comfort, but tonight a strange sense of unease gripped me. The car's radio played a soft, melancholic melody, its haunting notes echoing in the stillness of the night. The air inside the car was heavy with tension, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. As I continued down the road, a chilling mist began to rise from the ground, obscuring my vision. It was as if the night itself was conspiring to blur the boundaries between reality and the supernatural. My pulse quickened, and I tried to dismiss the unease as mere imagination. But then, as I rounded a bend, I saw it. A spectral figure standing in the middle of the road. The figure was translucent, its form wavering in the misty darkness. My heart leaped into my throat as I realized I was looking at a ghost. The ghostly figure was that of a young woman, her ethereal dress billowing in a non-existent breeze. Her hair, like dark tendrils of smoke, framed a face filled with sorrow. Her eyes, hollow and vacant, met mine, and a shiver ran down my spine. I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as the car skidded to a halt just inches from the apparition. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the ghostly figure in disbelief. It seemed to emanate an overwhelming sense of sadness and longing. For a moment, time stood still as we locked eyes. I could see the pain in her gaze, the torment of a soul trapped between worlds. It was as if she was pleading for something, a message left unspoken. Then, as suddenly as she had appeared, the ghostly figure began to dissipate, fading into the mist like a wisp of smoke. I watched in awe and fear as she vanished before my eyes, leaving behind an empty road and a sense of profound unease. As the mist cleared, I took a moment to regain my composure. My heart still pounded in my chest, and I knew I had encountered something otherworldly. The encounter with the ghost on that desolate road would haunt my dreams for years to come, a reminder that the boundary between the living and the dead was sometimes perilously thin.
The night was draped in inky darkness as I navigated a desolate stretch of highway, the only vehicle on the road for miles. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale, eerie glow over the landscape. Driving alone at night had always been a peaceful escape for me, a chance to clear my thoughts and find solace in the solitude. The car's radio played a soft, melodic tune, its gentle notes harmonizing with the whisper of the wind outside. The night air was cool and refreshing, a welcome contrast to the warmth within the car. It was a serene night, one that seemed to hold the promise of serenity. As I continued down the empty road, a strange sensation washed over me, like an invisible weight settling on my chest. I couldn't pinpoint the source of my unease, but it grew with each passing mile, gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. The road ahead seemed endless, winding through a thick forest that cast long, eerie shadows. The towering trees felt like sentinels standing guard over an ancient secret. I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched, but it clung to me like a persistent specter. My unease intensified when I noticed a series of flickering lights up ahead. They danced on the road like distant fireflies, their erratic movements defying any natural explanation. My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate. As I drew closer, the source of the flickering lights became apparent. A cluster of dilapidated, weathered roadside crosses. They stood like silent sentinels, marking the locations of past accidents and tragedies. The flickering lights were candles and lanterns, their flames casting an eerie, ethereal glow. I pulled over and approached the makeshift memorial, a sense of reverence washing over me. The air was heavy with the weight of sorrow and remembrance. Each cross bore a name, a date, and a brief epitaph. A haunting reminder of lives lost on this lonely road. As I read the names, I noticed that the dates on the crosses spanned decades. It was as if time had stood still on this forsaken stretch of highway, and the memories of those who had perished lingered in the air like an unspoken prayer. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the candles, plunging the memorial into darkness. My heart raced as I realized I was no longer alone. A presence seemed to materialize beside me, a formless entity that exuded a profound sense of sadness and despair. I stepped back, my breath catching in my throat, as the wind whispered words I could not understand. The presence, though invisible, felt palpable, like a mournful sigh that hung in the air. In that moment, I realized that I was standing on hallowed ground, a place where the memories of the departed clung to the very fabric of reality. I paid my respects in silence and retreated to my car, leaving behind the flickering lights and the ghostly presence. As I drove away from that solemn place, my unease had transformed into a deep sense of reverence. The night had revealed to me a glimpse of the past, a reminder of the enduring power of memory and the importance of acknowledging the lives that had once passed through this lonely stretch of highway.